And we're live. Content provided at the event is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Any performance reference is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Any economic forecast set forth during the event may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial and do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, a member of FINRA and SIPC. Investment advice offered through Gimbal Financial, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL Financial. Good morning.
Good morning.
We are on 3 different locations.
I feel like we're
all
back
at the
a
same
year ago
time.
now. Yeah. I'm having deja vu from a year ago in COVID times without an office, all in different locations.
You know, one of the things that excites me most about Gimbal Financial, and this is the way it's always been, and Keith, it's probably because of your Texas Instrument days and your computer background, but I mean, I think we're pretty good with technology. I think we embrace it. We're looking for the future, and got some exciting things we're even thinking about in Gimbal in the next 1, 5, 10 years. But like just the ability to even do this right here is pretty amazing. I know everybody else is doing it these days too, but just the freedom and flexibility of our culture for us to be in 3 locations and get the job done. That's exciting to me.
It's exciting times. It is. It's a big deal. I feel like we've really got the advantage over large corporations, even because we can adapt and we can move. This isn't something we started doing right away. I think we've exceeded our 1-year anniversary before Zoom was even cool. We were Zooming. I don't know.
Yeah, I think too. We'd have to look back and see when that was.
Yeah.
I think another highlight of Gimbal during these times has just been this little list that we keep. It's called the manifest. This is something that we do for clients to track investments and health and prayer requests and all kinds of stuff. And it's basically a document that can be shared no matter where you are, no matter where your location is. It allows us to keep in the loop with each other. And so if you got something going on in your life, we want to know about it so that we can participate with you wherever you are. And so we have the investments, we have life stuff, and they all really work well together. The whole point of you even investing in the first place is allowing your money to help you do some stuff, whether that be good food for your family or a great vacation or something in between. Those are the things that we're really jazzed about helping you with in 2021.
I was listening intently when Amanda was reading the disclaimer a while ago, and in one of those sentences, she read something to the effect that these thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial. And, you know, I had to smile on that because I don't think many of our peers or competitors are empowered to have their own thoughts and opinions. That a lot of our peers and competitors' thoughts and opinions are being sent down the food chain from the top down to them. And I think just having thoughts and opinions at the level where we're helping clients is a huge deal, because most of us have heard or worked in organizations or been around things where things have come from the top down. And a lot of times those people up in the top don't really know what's going on Main Street or across the table from somebody at lunch or something. So I'm excited that we have thoughts and opinions, and we're here to help people with their specific and unique situations.
So you heard it here first. I guess it'd be the first caller in today. Keith wants to buy your lunch. He wants to have lunch with you. Say you can express your thoughts and opinions to him, and he'll buy your lunch.
Well, if his last name shares yours, tell him I love Ruth Chris.
Nice.
Anybody else, I'm good just at the South Bend Chocolate Factory.
That's really good. Well, the markets have been really mixed over the last couple of weeks. Well, really since February. And a question that I get from time to time is what's the point of cash in my account? And that's a thought that I ponder often is, what is the point of cash? I think if you look back or you read articles, buy, hold, hope it all works out is a theme that you'll hear. A theme that you'll also hear is if you sit out these few days, you might miss the best days of the stock market. And those are things that we have to process in our thoughts from time to time. And as we look to the market and we try and say, okay, where is the market going? What's it trying to tell us? There are days when cash is just not a bad place to be. We know cash isn't earning you much money these days, if anything at all. But when we see markets mixed, it's not a bad place to be. And specifically, if we were to pull up and just take a look and see where the markets are today, I'll pull up the NASDAQ here. You'll see that here we are, reached a nice high point back here in February 12th, and we're trading well below that on the NASDAQ. Now, these are the most tech-oriented companies, high growth-oriented companies. These are the companies that really knocked the cover off the ball through the run-up of 2020, but they've given back some of their price and profits. And my best guess here is we're just waiting for profits to catch back up with our profits to catch back up with the forecasted earnings. And so this is something that I think is really interesting, that we're seeing the price come down from the February highs. You have any thoughts on the NASDAQ, Keith, or on cash right now?
Well, you and I have studied a lot of great investors over the years. We've met some great investors over the years, and one of those is Mark Minervini. I haven't met him before, but I've sat under his training. And one of the things that he talks about is a volatility contraction pattern. And if you put that chart back up, Doug, several of these meetings in the past, I've talked about, I don't like long lines. Like if you go way over to the left on your screen where I can't see the right over to the right, just an inch or a half inch or so right there, those long lines right there where that market started selling off, those are daily ranges of stocks. And as those lines start getting longer, it's just harder and harder for investors to make money in the short term. And so those lines have to start shortening down to be more constant, stable market. And he kind of almost forms an S or so on laying down sideways. And so he describes this thing, a volatility contraction pattern, where the stocks start getting so boring that people quit following them, and the lines all of a sudden get really short, and the volume, which is down at the bottom of those charts, starts drying up, where you don't have the high volume like you had last fall. And so we're seeing a lot of markets that are kind of forming that pattern, which if it works out properly, we'll be able to get back in the market in a much safer time frame and have much more optimistic views. Nobody's perfect at guessing those things, but this pattern has been pretty helpful for investors for many, many years, probably over a couple hundred years. My guess is it's just an expression of supply and demand. So I think it's, there's times to be more aggressive and times to be cautious. And I think we're just right there at that crossroads from being a little more cautious right now.
It's been interesting to see. Here's a picture of the S&P 500, the largest 500 companies in America. And many of these are global companies. They're doing business overseas too. But this chart pattern, it's looking different. It's looking different than the high-tech NASDAQ. And many of these companies are ones that have been coming back. And some of these might be airlines or oil stocks or hotels, COVID plays that didn't go so well during last spring and summer. And so it's great to see a little bit of mix between some of the old school companies and the tech companies. Is that something that we see often, or is that something that is unusual? What's your take on that?
Well, if you'll give me a separate index of the S&P 600, and then just this past week, like at the end of last week, we only had 50% of the NASDAQ stocks, which is the one you showed before, over their 50-day moving average, which is the red line on this chart here. So 50% of the stocks were above that line and 50% were below it. And that tells you, roughly the last couple months or so, what the trend is of those stocks. And so when they cross below 50 days, it just means they're starting to trend downwards. And about 43% of those were, of the stocks were actually below their 200-day moving average, which is that black line that's way down below there. And so if you can see the difference in those red and blue lines, or the red and black line there. And so if a stock, its price, and 43% of them are below that line right there, you would have to guess, without mentioning specific names, that there's a lot of stocks that are trending downward right now. 43% are below that line. And so my guess is that the averages or the indices are showing you one thing and individual stocks are showing you something else. I was intrigued by this particular index earlier in the week. It looked like it was kind of trying to go to new highs yesterday or the day before. I can't see that clearly, but that it was trying to get up to where it was a few weeks ago. And so, the market's really interesting to me right now. I don't think there's an urgency to do anything.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a good time to stay balanced, and that balance is to have some cash, to have participation too, but to have some cash in play so that you can take advantage of times where the opportunities are looking a little more favorable, especially in the higher tech end of the market. So that's a quick spin on the market. I mean, we're in summertime. Summertime tends to be a time when many investors and traders go on vacation, and so the amount of trading tends to drop off, and that's nothing unusual. And so there's a saying, sell in May and go away. And so that's true for a lot of investors. And so we're keeping track of things day by day. We're looking for opportunities. We have data points where we're looking to and making decisions based on those data points for you. But if you have a question about your individual portfolio or the holdings or the cash that you have, definitely reach out to us, and we'd definitely want to talk to you about it.
Speaking of vacation, I'm broadcasting live from a bed and breakfast in northern Indiana called the Highfield Inn. I highly recommend it. If you need to get away for a few days, Google Highfield Inn, and Christina will take good care of you. And I'm near the town of Shipshewana. And so what I was thinking about all this is that if you're traveling this summer, keep in mind the supply chains have been disrupted, and things that you're thinking about doing, if you're like me and you don't plan in advance too much for those things, you may want to do some research before you jump out there and go making plans. We were talking to some friends last week who booked their plane, they booked their hotel, and then they were booking their car for the week last, and they found out the car was going to be $4,000. And so there's a lot of supply chains that are disrupting things that are worthwhile considering. But I'm excited because this last week I just noticed I see more people's faces. I'm beginning to see smiles again. But tonight I'm going to do something really. I'm going to go out on the limb tonight. I'm going to actually go to a concert tonight, so I'm pretty jazzed about that. And so I'm going to go listen to some Josh Turner tonight. So that's going to be. I'm curious. My gut is there's going to be somebody sitting on both sides of me, and
there will be,
because I was a little. Yeah, because I was a little late getting my ticket order, and it won't be Connie. She's going to be sitting directly in front of me. So that's the best I can do. So
yeah, there will be. We went to the Carmel Gazebo's first concert. The Flying Toasters played, and There was a good turnout. It's great to see people out and about. And one of the ways to participate and view the economy is just keep your eyes open. It is amazing when you drive around and you just do a quick index of who's eating, who's going out to eat. And it's great to see some flows coming back into restaurants and small businesses. And as you drive around your community, you may run across a business that has a nice presence in your community, but it's still small. And it's great to see those small businesses with their doors opening. And it's kind of like we track the stock market. The volume, all the volume is how many people are showing up and what are they doing with their money. And so if they're spending their money, that's good volume coming into the businesses.
I stopped by the gym the other day and I couldn't do the workout I intended because the gym facility hasn't caught up with the reality of supply and demand. They still have a spacer that they're not letting people on every other aerobic device, whether it's the treadmill or whatever, the bikes or whatever. And so they're every other one were completely filled. The dead weight, the dead weights it was just insane in there. I was shocked, but I would say if you've not been out and about and seen what's going on, that all of those kind of things are what I was alluding to with the supply chain disruption, because these people that didn't have their inventories in place and weren't able to get employees to get things going, all those things are going to take a little bit of time to get somewhat normalized. So it'll be a real interesting next 6 months, I think.
Well, what else do we have going on? I've been out this week, but Amanda, I've noticed that you and Deb have been hard at work behind the scenes. I want to give a shout out to Debbie. We had a client pass away, a really dear client, and working with beneficiaries is an interesting experience. Sometimes we get to know the kids before mom and dad passes away. Other times we don't. But in this case, we were able to get to know the beneficiaries before mom and dad passed away. And I just want to give Debbie a shout because she turned around a big project, lickety split for this guy, overnighted everything to him. And he's going to have that ready for his meetings next week. And so that's one of the joys of my week was just seeing the action taking place, even though I've been stuck at home with an ice cooler on my knee. And I just really appreciate the work that's going on behind the scenes. Any other successful wins this week, Amanda?
Ooh, where do I even begin? I mean, it was a short week, but sometimes those feel like the longest. We've just been very productive back here, holding down the fort while you've been at home recovering.
And I think you guys were at the Fishers PD.
We did, yeah. We had a box burger, which many of you guys have had box burger here at our office, which rave reviews. Everyone loved them. We had them at the Fishers Police Department on Tuesday this week, and big turnout there. We were just showing all of our love and support to our local police departments for all their hard work, and it was a mutual appreciation, I think, on both ends. So thank you to the Fishers Police Department and Boxburger for having us out.
And Fishers Police, they've had a presence in our lives for a long time because the business had been in Fishers for what, 20 years, Keith? More than that?
Yeah.
And so we've gotten to know some Fishers policemen over the years.
Yeah, it's been a real blessing. And if none of you have ever done a ride along with the police department in your community, I'd highly encourage it. I try to do it once a year just so I have a flavor for what's really going on in my community. I do it in the middle of the night because I think that's that old Jack Nicholson movie. You don't want to know the truth. I think if you go in the middle of the night of your community, you're going to really know what's going on in your community. And I just appreciate those folks doing what they do so I can sleep at night.
Well, I think if you do that too, you're going to realize just how safe your community is. Because the ride along that I did was extremely boring. We had no action, and I had great conversation with the officer. Don't get me wrong, but there was no action, and that gave me great peace of mind knowing that my community is pretty safe.
Well, it's an honor to encourage those folks in uniform and to let them know we appreciate them. So it was a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal. I think from what Amanda and Debbie have done this week, I think just, we don't get aggressively on the sales mode, but I would suggest to you folks that are watching that the service level that Gimbal Financial offers is far and above what goes on with those national brand names that many of you might have your retirement plans with, or other things that you're going to get a hold of somebody, but they're not going to handhold you and get the thing done with the personal service that we do at Gimbal. And that's a huge deal. It's, if you go through some of these emotional seasons in life where things shift and you have to move assets around, having somebody to take care of that who actually cares specifically about you is something I think that Gimbal brings to the table that's, I think, invaluable.
Yeah, no doubt. That is one of the joys of building the culture of Gimbal, is the ability to have the authority to make decisions, and then have the knowledge to be able to do it. And so it's something that we're getting better with, even with technology and personalities. And if you got something going on where you need some help, give us a buzz.
Can I rant for a minute or two?
Depends.
I didn't see the article this week, but evidently the New York Times was suggesting that inflation is not a big deal. And
okay.
And so no matter which way you vote, I mean, it's mostly a binary voting out there in America today, but however you vote, if somebody tries to tell you inflation is not a big deal, it is. And inflation is real today. You're going to see the increase of a lot of things going on. I was looking at a variety of products like corn and wheat and things, seeing what they've done even in the last 6 months. And so if you hear somebody telling you that the 1970s sort of inflation was not a big deal, they don't know what they're talking about. It was a big deal. A inflationary season like the 1970s is a regressive tax that impacts the lower income people worse than anybody else. And so the lower income people are going to be most affected in a negative way by inflation. It is a tax. It's driven a lot of times by the government decision grid. And inflation is something that forces investors, consumers, and whoever to be much more aggressive in their own personal decision grid, because if you don't do anything, things will take their own decision, and you may find yourself in a bad situation with those assets that aren't generally protected against inflation. And so I wasn't aware that went on in the last week or so, and I was reading some research this week about it, and I just want to point that out. So if you hear anybody that you're talking to that says inflation is not that big a deal, I lived through the 1970s, and it was not a good decade. It was a bad time. Even though people could get 15% on a certificate of deposit, when you're getting 15% on a certificate of deposit, your groceries are going up by 15%, your property taxes are going up by 15%, your house value might be worth more, but everything else is going against you. Your wages are not going up by 15%. So there's just a lot of problems that happen with that. You're going to have higher unemployment during inflationary times. And so I just want to make sure that if you hear anybody say that inflation is not a big deal, it is a big deal. And don't believe somebody telling you that, because if you look at world history where inflation picks up and it gets to those double-digit levels, it becomes very difficult, particularly on the lower income people.
Something I've seen in the last 20 years of doing this is I've seen people really win during retirement. And a few of those real winning strategies is to stay flexible and to adjust your expectations on what you're going to live off of. And so if you have things like, Social Security coming in and you've been drawing on your portfolios, it's probably a good time to get together with us and say, what's a reasonable rate to pull off your portfolios in 2021? And if we do see steady inflation kicking up, what's that going to look like? And what does your spending look like? Those types of pivots are really important. and then they're tied to your goals. I mean, some of our clients, they're like, hey, I want to spend every dollar. I'm not going to leave anything to my kids. And others, they want to leave money for their kids. And so those are the types of conversations we could have, but it's rarely a thing where you set it and forget it. The real winners make some adjustments from time to time, even with the income that's being generated from a portfolio.
I think if you go back and look at what went on in the 1970s, and I've been saying for probably a year or two that all the things going on in our country look almost like a deja vu of the 1970s. I think what the 1970s forced individual investors, consumers, employees, I think what it forced you to do is you had to be more aware, more aggressive in making your own decisions and proactive versus just kind of the last couple decades have been a pretty set it and forget it kind of mindset. And I think if you're not paying attention, that set it and forget it might be a bad situation you might find yourself in. So I'm not like panic mode. I'm just saying there's a lot of major variables that are shifting pretty quickly right now. And it's probably a good time to be aware of those things.
Yeah, that's a good word. I'll have to find that article and take a peek at it. I have not seen that. That's pretty wild.
Well, it's a inflation and deflation can be bad, but we haven't experienced that. What's going on under the water level right now? It could be just supply chain disruptions, and hopefully that's all it is. Right. Maybe plywood's not going to keep doubling in value, or for a long term, but it's going to take probably 6 months for the supply chain, in my opinion, to get stabilized, and then we can see what's real and what's just disruptive. So, but yeah, that's out there. That's what's going on in the world of economics, and I don't know, I heard you can't find appliances now. If you want appliances, you can't find drivable RVs, you can't find too many vehicles. So that all that is a result of supply chain disruption, particularly even in the semiconductor marketplace. So it will work its way through, but it's probably kind of like choked off right now. And then once it frees up, then those things that people were chasing after might be readily available. You might see some quick drops in some of those prices.
Thank goodness for YouTube, where you can fix some stuff on your own. It might be a great time to develop some new skill sets.
Man, well, it looks like it's gonna be a great weekend. I don't know if you guys got big plans or what you have in mind.
Hanging out, enjoying good weather.
I've got a continuous date with this thing right here, my Iceman cooler. But you guys have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to bouncing back next week.
Now, I haven't asked you, Doug, are you going to be mobile enough that you're going to be out of that COVID office, or are you going to still be there next week?
I don't know yet. We'll see how the weekend goes. Yeah.
We'll trust you'll get some good healing on that, and I hope everybody has a spectacular weekend.
Nice.
See you guys.
Yeah.